Joe Biden's not the head of the Democratic Party. I mean, he happens to be president of the United States. It's not his job to organize at all levels the Democratic Party. That's the Democratic Party's responsibility. We have a Democratic Party, and yeah, where the hell are we as a party to capture the narrative, to capture the imagination of the American people?
Okay, so there's the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, venting his frustration at leadership within the Democratic Party, holding his fire against the president. Kellyanne Conway is a former Trump advisor. Marc Penn, former Clinton pollster and advisor. Good day to both of you. Welcome back here. One thing he said there, Kellyanne, is, I don't want to take a cheap shot. Well, did he?
He did. He did. And actually, maybe he's auditioning for 2024. It seems like many Democrats are. They're openly questioning Joe Biden's acuity and age. I actually think more than Joe Biden's acuity and age, his problems lie in his actions, his failure to really calm the economic angst that people tell pollsters everywhere are really roiling them. And you know, Bill, what's happening with economic angst now is not just the deflation of the Democratic Party, but people are making choices. They feel they're forced to make choices around the kitchen table that perhaps they otherwise would not. They're asking, where is the bottom? When will this end? They don't see Joe Biden as a man with a plan. And I think Governor Newsom of California speaks for many Democrats right now, including at the consultant level, certainly at the candidate level. They're openly wondering, what would be the message for Joe Biden to stand up, say, next year and say 4 more years? 4 more years of what? We see crisis and chaos everywhere. You see smart people like David Axelrod. You see smart people like Gavin Newsom openly questioning whether Joe Biden has what it takes to stay in the job. And then you have the press secretary confirming, of all things, that Joe Biden, who has no really good policy prescriptions on the issues facing America right now, politically, he's resolute on running again. The question is what? And I think the big question is, where will President Obama be on all this? Barack Obama famously said, you don't need to do this, Joe, about his vice president of 8 years running in 2020. It sounds like he was against that for younger leadership. The open question of the Democratic Party is, how active would President Obama, very popular in the party, certainly, how active would he be in a re-election for Joe Biden?
Well, he's been quiet for about 1.5 years. Mark, what do you think? What do you see in this?
Well, right now, I think we're not really seeing a discipline in the Democratic Party to close ranks behind the president, certainly going into the midterms. Governor Newsom wasn't correct. The president is the head of the Democratic Party, is responsible for the leadership. AOC did the president no favors by not at least endorsing the president's reelection. So, look, obviously this president is in a difficult position, is facing job ratings below 40%. We have seen both Barack Obama, and President Clinton turn around from situations like this, turn around from disastrous midterms. Look, I think the task looks quite daunting. I haven't seen an indication that the president is going to do that. But right now, going into the midterms, it is a party divided upon itself.
Okay, interesting on that. You saw the piece in the New York Times 2 days ago, right? Biden in 2024, question mark, many in party whisper no. I mean, you print it out, it runs 5 pages. They've been working on this. Peter Doocy, similar question in the press room just yesterday. Watch.
Is the president running for re-election?
Let's reset for a second. I cannot talk about election. The president, as you know, has been asked that question many times, and he has answered it. His answer has been pretty simple, which is, yes, he's running for re-election. I can't say more than that.
Kellyanne, address that. I mean, you did it a little bit in the last answer there. But back to this New York Times piece. If you go to page 4, Howard Dean says, quote, "The generation after me is just a complete trash heap." I said, I said, did I read that right?
Well, you did.
That's how he's quoted.
Well, the way to attract voters is not to insult them. It's basic premise. You don't need to be a pollster to know that. But look, Biden's problems are coming from inside the House. This is not this vast right-wing conspiracy. You've got Democrats on the record, and some of them quoted off the record, or as background, Bill, trying to broadcast very clearly to the president and the people in the White House, many of whom have left, by the way, we're not in for another 6.5 years of Joe Biden, because we see what all that brings. I'm very curious about the Morning Consult political poll that came out yesterday of young people. 16% of young women approve of Joe Biden's job approval. I mean, that's crazy, strongly approve of it. And 43% of young people say he hasn't kept his promises. They were overwhelmingly for Joe Biden. But look, Joe Biden got elected in large part because he wasn't Donald Trump. And people really weren't that exposed to him. He was able to, I don't know, pop in for maybe an hour a week, all told, during the 2020 campaign before the debates. And so when you're elected with no real mandate and no real constituency, you need to build that fairly quickly. The center has totally cratered for him. Independents have walked away. And in this Morning Consult poll, you see a very small number of young people strongly approving of his job.
Interesting data point. We'll watch it. Mark, wrap it up. Put a button on it.
Well, look, the president here's got the midterms. The Democrats here have either got to come together here. You can't abandon your own president and expect to do better in the midterms. This article at the New York Times was a devastating article. The president does want to run for re-election if he can. Right now with his numbers, I doubt that he's going to make it to re-election. But as I said before, presidents can turn it around. Sometimes they don't, like Donald Trump. Sometimes they do, like Barack Obama and President Clinton.
Great to have you back this week. See you next week. Kellyanne Conway and Marc Penn, two of the best. Thanks. I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.